There's a new racing movie in theaters now. Does it reach the finish line in time? Let's find out.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Once more unto the bridge, dear friends.
Again and again until we're both dead.
There's only like 12 stories. They change around little details, but they're all pretty much the same.
Deja vu. Something very familiar about it.
Hello, welcome. You've seen it before. Movie reviews, connections in mind. F1, or F1 the movie as it's being marketed, is the latest film from director Joseph Kosinski, who previously directed Top Gun Maverick, and it stars Brad Pitt as Sonny Hayes, a what's called washed out racer who is brought back into the world of Formula One racing in order to save his friend's ailing team and bring them up from the basement of the standings and earn a little money along the side, as well as ruffle some feathers in both in the team and outside the team. Now, this review will contain spoilers of F1 as well as certain other films. I'll be doing my spoiler-free thoughts first and foremost, though, but just so you know, there will be some spoilers later on in this review. So, first things first, let's get into some spoiler-free talk on F1 the movie. Is this a good film overall? Is this a good film to see in the theaters? Is this a good racing movie? I would say, because this is the same crew for the most part that did Top Gun Maverick. You got the same director, the same cinematographer. You got one of the same screenwriters as Top Gun Maverick. So you got a solid team there, and this movie was shot, I believe, almost exclusively in IMAX. So that is well worth it to see this in as big a theater as you can, because my gosh, the racing scenes do look spectacular. Some of the best racing scenes out there. I mean, I personally, I enjoy car racing, sure, but I thought the coming off the heels of something like Top Gun Maverick, where it's like, yes, we're putting, these expensive cameras in real fighter jets and they're flying around, but which is amazing. And then we have here, it's like, yes, we're putting these cameras in real Formula One cars and shooting, going around the track. And yes, it's cool, but I guess it just depends on your preference. I personally think that the visuals were a little more spectacular in Top Gun Maverick than they were here, but that's not to say that these aren't incredible racing scenes. I swear, there's a couple scenes in particular where it's like you feel like you are in the driver's seat on this. I mean, this feels like this is probably going to be how movie experiences are going to be sold in this day and age, where when everything's a sequel or something, it's either a sequel to a established property, you're going to sell it off that, or you're going to sell it off the spectacular. And this is definitely in that latter category, because the visuals are stunning. The racing, I've read that the F1, the Formula One, this was filmed during the 2023 to 2024 Formula One season. So it's about as real as it gets on that. You have real Formula One racers make appearances in this. I mean, in fact, Lewis Hamilton, who was one of the producers of this movie, plays a pivotal role in the finale. So you got that going for you. So if you're a fan of Formula One, you're definitely going to find some things fun to be had in this. Or this could also be a great introduction for those Americans who we've been rightly criticized, I think, for all of our racing is just when you could turn left, the best, but Formula One, this is going to be a great introduction. If you've never experienced, had any exposure to Formula One before, I think this is going to be a great intro for you, even though I've heard tell that there's some aspects of this that kind of got omitted for storytelling's sake that really do play a critical role in actual Formula One. But those are the kind of things that in the Hollywoodization things, like those would get in the way of the story. So let's talk about the story. Like I said, Brad Pitt plays Sonny Hayes, a racer who previously raced in Formula One in the 90s, but after a bad accident, got out of the game, so he's coming back to help out his friend who owns the team, played by Javier Bardem, who does a pretty good job. That I believe the chemistry between Brad Pitt and Javier Bardem, they have a nice relationship with there, and of course. His return ruffles the feathers of the young up-and-comer racer who was the number 2 about to be the number 1 racer on this team, Joshua Pierce, played by Damson Idris, who he does a pretty good job. I think with what he has, I think there's some decent story elements to be had with him. There's a good character dynamic, a good rivalry built up between him and Brad Pitt. I especially like when they go to a bar in Vegas. There's a pretty good scene. I think is probably the best character growth, or rather the best character interaction between the two, but face to face rather. A lot of their interactions, they're both on the same team, so they're driving different cars. They're talking with each other on the radio, so there's that element of it. But there's that. So there's some good character development on that front. However, if I just said, the fact that I just say, this is an underdog story. The team's down on their luck. They're about to be flushed out of the standings. The team's being threatened by a buyout. The old timer comes in and the young up and comer doesn't like it. If these tropes sound familiar to you, yes, this is a extremely generic sports movie. If you've seen any kind of sports movie, it doesn't even matter which sports, be it formula, being racing, basketball, football, baseball, whatever. This is very much paint by numbers storytelling, and I don't know if that lets the movie down, but it sure does this movie no favors. It really plays the strength, shows the strength of actors like Brad Pitt, like Javier Bardem, and like Damson Idris, who, as well as Carrie Condon, who plays Kate, the team's technical director. That these actors, they are able to elevate what is a very lackluster script and very generic plot points into something that they make the most of what they have, and that's the mark of a good actor, in my opinion. And they absolutely do that. It's not painful to sit through those scenes, because it's like, yeah, some of these tropes, like, they're tropes for a reason. Like, they're cliche for a reason. These are feel-good things. Like, I don't think it's any kind of secret whatsoever to say, hey, the underdog team, they're going to triumph in the end. You might think that's a spoiler, but again, that's every single sports movie ever made, pretty much. But we like to see that story. We want to see these underdogs succeed. Like, we want to feel to see the conflict between characters, but also have them reconcile at some point and learn the parallel life lessons on that front. These are good, these are tropes for a reason, and whether they are done well or done poorly all depends on the actors delivering them. I think the actors in F1 do deliver well enough so that these tropes, you don't feel the pain of having to sit through a generic script again. You know what I'm saying? So I would say, yeah, this script is very much the same as a lot of different sports movies as well. Both the pluses and the minuses. I'll talk about the minuses in my spoiler section, just because there's it has to do with certain characters that I guess they kind of play it as a twist. So I'll see how the first spoiler thing, but there are some tropes that are definitely negatives on that front that do hurt it. But overall, I would say people who are going to go see this movie are not going to see it for deep character driven drama. There's other sports like drama. You go and see this for the racing scenes and the great cinematography, and this movie delivers in spades. And if you get to see Brad Pitt pose in a race car. I'm pretty sure he was not actually driving a Formula One car. I mean, maybe he did. I don't know, but he's not Tom Cruise flying in fighter jets or anything. But I don't know. So, but you get to see that, so there's a bonus on that front. So overall, I would say if I was going to give F1 the movie a letter grade, I would say this is a solid B plus. And it, not the greatest ever, but it does very much above average. To go just for the visuals alone. And if you're going to wait for this on streaming, don't do that, because unless you own a 40 50 foot screen at home, it's not going to look as good on your 65-inch TV. It's just not. Uh, so that's my letter grade. If I was going to weigh this in on the scale of unoriginality, like I said, the genericness of the script is what really weighs this down. And so F1, the movie, I would say weighs in at, this looks really familiar, like Clark Kent resembling Superman familiar. So it could have weighed in more, but like I said, it could have been worse, but it definitely could have been better. They could have animated just a little bit. So those are my main spoiler-free thoughts on F1, the movie. Now let's get into some spoiler talk as certain plot develops and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. Like I said, generic scripts. I could point to so many different examples of this, but I'm going to point to a couple here, just because, on the genre of racing movies, I would say this shares a very similar plot beat with a recent film, racing film, Ford v Ferrari. And again, struggling racing owner operator recruits a gruff, less diplomatic race driver to come in, and he also has to learn um, to be a team player at the end. And so there's that component, but more specifically, I want to point to Ford v Ferrari with the element of these unnecessary antagonist, because in a racing movie, it's like the stakes are, hey, we're a team that's losing, we need to win. That's it. We don't need any more. Yet this movie and Ford v Ferrari feel the need to add an unnecessary human antagonist. And I mean that I say human antagonist rather than the sports team, the winning losing the antagonists element of it. In Ford v Ferrari, it was one of the Ford executives who really doesn't like Chris Bale's driver character, and they butt heads with each other. In F1, it was the one board member who would benefit from the team selling, and he makes a confession. Oh, well, you weren't. We brought you in because we thought you were going to boost the sale price of the team, but right before we sell it, you weren't expected to win so much. And it's like it came so late in the movie. It's like, did this really matter, like, at all? And this was not built up at all. Like, I was so engrossed in the all right, the team's winning, great, Brad Pitt and Dave's interest, they're learning their parallel lessons or whatever. That's great. Why do we need this guy? Like, we don't. There's no point whatsoever in bringing this guy into it. And his comeuppance is the team wins, and so his contract, he doesn't get to sell the team, and his deal with another person, I guess, on the board that we've never seen before and don't see again, is like, oh, well, you're not going to be on the board anymore. It's like, what was the point of that? I have no idea. And yeah, that was something that just kind of struck me as odd, that they felt the need to do that again. It's similarly, another movie that this made me think that this felt very familiar was another recent racing movie that was Gran Turismo, where once again you have a racing team that you bring in the unlikely outsider who, their presence ruffles the feathers of the establishment characters, the characters who've already been there, have been working their way through it, and it's like, oh, you don't deserve to be here kind of thing. However, Gran Turismo, I feel like people completely forgot about that movie because the racing scenes in that movie, I think, were also very generic. And um, it didn't have, again, not the fault of the casting, budget wise, but it doesn't have the star power of Brad Pitt. So I feel like F1 is going to have a much better staying power than something like Gran Turismo. So that's just how this business works, I guess. Uh, and finally, of course, this was from the director and one of the screenwriters from Top Gun Maverick. And the original Top Gun was kind of billed as a sports kind of movie, but with fighter jets. And so it made sense that Top Gun Maverick also had that kind of uh, energy to it. And of course, Top Gun Maverick also features the older father figure coming back into the business to impart life lessons to a surrogate son figure in that vein, of course. And so again, themed throughout a lot of different movies, but the fact that we saw it both in Top Gun Maverick and F1, it can't be ignored. So those are my main spoiler thoughts on F1 the movie. What did you think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. To be sure to look for my next movie review, which will be for Jurassic World Rebirth, which comes out this July 4th weekend, as well as my TV review for Ironheart, the latest limited series on Disney Plus for Marvel. They've released the first 3 episodes so far. I believe the next 3 are going to come out the next day or so. So be sure to look for my review of those. And if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially a subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, I've seen it before.